Hello and welcome to PhDear Diary. My name is Andy Salkeld and this is my video blog during my time of undertaking a PhD at Leeds Beckett University. You'll have noticed that I have not recorded these for the past couple of weeks. There was a number of things going on and I needed to kind of figure things out for myself. As you'll have heard beforehand, I was very concerned about what was going on with the global energy crisis, what that meant for my recruitment plans, what that meant for cost to myself and to everyone else in the world, and largely just needed to figure that out. The first week I missed, it was my middle brother's stag do, so I just did not have time. I was away that weekend. And then the weekend after, I was actually very ill. But still, I should have probably recorded these, but because of where my headspace was, it didn't feel very good to try to just force things when it just wasn't right. So where I am now is I have made the difficult and incredibly tough decision to suspend my studies for where I am. And what this essentially means is I am going to put things on hold for a year. I'm going to stop the recruitment for my studies. Luckily, because no one took part in them so far and no one wanted to take part in them, it's a simpler task. But I find myself in a position where I cannot afford to spend the, say, £3,500 necessary to recruit people to do quantitative studies. And that is a hard reality that kind of feels awkward. I do feel a bit of anger where I was told there would be support. I was led to believe that this sort of methodology would be possible. And now that we end up in a position where I cannot afford to do it myself, there is no support available. And in fact, I was told that the university may be looking to cut support for PhD students. And all those things combined made this feel very, very upsetting, unwelcoming, unwanted, and largely it felt like I was almost led down a path because of my ability to pay, and then when I was not able to pay, suddenly it was taken away from me, and essentially everything would have to change, and that's not great. But at the same point, it is what it is. Can't hold grudges. Can't be too upset about it, because sadly the world is in a much worse state now than previously. The world is struggling, and we have to move and adapt with the times. And I am no different. There was a couple of options that I could have gone through. So I could have gone down the route of trying to pay for what I could, and whilst that is possible, it's also at the same point I felt it would compromise the integrity of the science and the quantitative method to not kind of get the correct number of responses. I felt I wouldn't be doing it justice, and so that led me to a rather kind of sad impasse where I couldn't do the research I want in the way I want because of money. And then another alternative was to switch methodologies. So this would be swapping to a qualitative methodology. So this is where I would be interviewing people and asking for their insight and input. Now, this is something I wanted to do anyway, but it's something I wanted to do later in the process, after I had some indication of causal relationships from quantitative studies. So it was always going to be a factor, but it would end up being let's deal with this later once I know the questions to ask. So there's a point there of kind of like, well, maybe I change the order of things. Maybe I go and look at use the qualitative to inform the quantitative. And that was always a possibility. But at the same point, I would have to reshape things and I would still want to do the quantitative. And I just didn't feel it was an appropriate time to do it. A lot of the responses I've got back from people is they don't want to, because everyone is struggling with the energy crisis. No one wants their staff to not be working, and everyone wants to be solving or trying to survive the energy crisis. Likewise, me and my business, we have to think about those things ourselves. It becomes very challenging to do that. One of the other things that I could do is I could have swapped to doing it part-time to give myself a longer time to recruit and to do it slowly and organically rather than paying people. However, again, that's a time commitment and a cost commitment, because obviously I'm doing this self-funded, so I'm paying the fees each year to do this, which is challenging when you're being told that there is increased energy cost everywhere. Even though the government has announced that there will be caps and rebates and things like that, it's still a cost that is unnecessary. If we go back to things I've talked about before with, say, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, me doing this PhD is self-actualization. It's at the top, and I do not want to compromise my lower levels of sort of my well-being, my ability to have heat, water, electricity, etc. And that's just one of the realities that we face right now. An option I could have gone down, I could have taken on a student loan to pay for the research. However, again, this feels it feels bad to go into debt at a personal level to do research that no one has volunteered to take part in. And I didn't want to take on that personal obligation myself at this stage because it felt too risky. It felt it could compromise me in the longer run, which is sad. But again, it's a factor of life, and that is challenging, and that isn't necessarily the way to do it. So yes, I have taken the very hard decision and the very tough decision to suspend my studies. And what that means is essentially we just put things on pause for a year. So in a year's time, once it's been approved by the university, I'll then get back in touch and we'll be ready to start again. And everything will kind of just pick up where we left off now. Hopefully by then, financial positions will have improved, things will have moved along, and generally there will be a more positive spin in the world. Touch wood. I really hope that is the case for everyone involved, particularly the people in Ukraine, and all the people that are now in energy poverty as a result of some of these things. So we'll see. What that means for this PhDear Diary will obviously suspend, because I am not doing a PhD, or I am doing a PhD, but it's suspended. So I won't be recording these weekly anymore. I will try to keep up to date with reading around the subject and just try to be interested, because it is something I care about. It's something that I think not enough people understand. And I think it's an important topic, particularly going forward at the end of all this. But right now we're in a mode of survival, and survival needs different things and so on. So this will be the last recording for PhDear Diary in a while, but at the same point there are plenty more opportunities to do other recordings. One of the things that I've really wanted to do for a while is to support people who struggle with anxiety, depression, like I do, and to try and share the things that have helped me get through life and overcome them, or at least cope with them, shall we say. Now, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know whether I'm going to do it in a particular form or format, or whether it's going to be related to a specific area. So one of the things I've thought of doing, given my notoriety in various kind of various gaming communities, is to do it from a gaming perspective. Be able to say, here's how I overcome my anxiety to be able to play in large tournaments and often perform well, etc. But I haven't figured everything out yet. I've also thought of going back to streaming for a little bit, just as a hobby more than anything, on an evening, to be able to share my experiences and be able to say, hey, here's a safe haven for people who are struggling, who live with anxiety, depression, who would just like someone who understands it and has been there, and just a face to talk to and so on. It's something I've always wished I had, and why not try to give something back to other people out there? So I haven't quite figured that out. I really enjoy recording things like this. I like sharing my experiences. I am an entertainer and someone that likes kind of performing. So this is a way that I can continue to perform to audiences. So I'm going to try to figure some of that out. But until then, this will be goodbye. But please watch this space, because it will probably happen again. And I will see you then. So thank you very much for watching so far. And I will speak to you in a year's time. So thank you very much.